Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here with me again today. My name is Amy Diamond. I'm delighted to be here with you today. So today's episode is coming straight out of the life of Amy, and we're going to talk about something that happened yesterday while I was out with my husband and how you can actually move through these challenging moments with a spouse, with your friends, with your colleagues, and how to get life feeling pretty good. So let's dive in. Yesterday, my husband and I were out at a street festival here in Calgary. Now, it was a cold, kind of gloomy day, so it wasn't the best day for a festival, but we thought, let's go check it out. Let's see what's happening. As we're moving down the street, there's on both sides of the street, there's all these rows of vendors, right? There's all these tents with candle shops, and oh my gosh, we saw so many custom cake tents and cookie tents. I guess this is all the rage right now. Shout out if that's your business. All kinds of just different things that were happening. One of the tents was I think it's a burlesque fitness kind of gym. So I spotted them from 30 feet away because there were these big pink feathers standing out, and I was like, ooh, what's happening over there? And as we got closer, it said something like burlesque for your body. I just remember thinking that would be really cool. I mentioned to my husband, when my income allows, I think I'd like to try that out. That sounds like it could be fun. My husband says, well, when we have money, there's all kinds of things that would be fun to do. It's really not fun to do things without money. Talk about raining on a parade, right? I was very intentional with how I had said, hey, when my income allows, this is a desire I have. I think this could be fun to do. And he responded with, here's all the things that are bad. So let me just we're not throwing my husband under the bus, okay? What I want to talk about today, what I want us to focus on is our side of the street. This is the heart of all of our money work, okay? And in truth, all of our internal growth work, period. Bar none, this is where we start. It always starts in here, and what happens out there is just gonna do its thing. My husband has his own beliefs, his own experiences, his own fears, doubts, the things that he's moving through. I love him dearly. He's an amazing human. And also, it's not for me to dictate what he says, how he believes, and the things that he expects to see coming in. It is also not for me to dictate how he feels, or for me to say, well, he feels this way, and so therefore I must as well. Now, this last one is something that I've really been in a deep stage of growth working through. Not because I've been thinking if he feels bad, I need to feel bad, but holy moly, when he's not his normal self, if he's having a rough day, if he's really sometimes they just get grumpy. It has been a challenge for me to allow myself to still feel positive, to allow myself to maintain the joyfulness or the sense of fun that I am maybe having at that moment. It is much more natural for me to notch down and then to now I start telling myself all kinds of stories about why he is feeling that way. And they usually end with me doing something wrong, right? Now this, if you were a psychologist or psychiatrist watching this, I'm 1,000% sure that you'd be going, ooh, Amy, damn, sounds like there's some childhood trauma things that you need to work through. And you're probably right. And also, we are still living life in the present. So with all of those things said, here's what I want us to think about today. When we have a moment like that, where we are looking at something and we are explaining it, putting words around it, emotions around it, and intent around it in a way that is in alignment with what we want to create. So for example, inside my Wealthy as Fuck program, we have a whole conversation about the power of our words. Our words are literally creating everything in our life. So there's tremendous power in what it is that we say. If I were to say, I wish I could afford to go to that burlesque, or man, burlesque would be amazing, but I can't afford to do that. That's a whole different intention and a whole different vibe than, when my income allows, I would very much like to do that. Now, that could probably still be tweaked, but listen, we're out on the street, we're having a Sunday, like we're not going to get too nitpicky about those things. When someone responds in a way that feels yucky, that feels heavy, that gets all of our fears and doubts and limiting beliefs activated, this is where our work begins. Step one, I'd love to give this to you in like 5 steps, and I'm just gonna like talk through how I did this, okay? Because I don't have notes and I don't have like very clear ways of here's exactly how I did it. But here's step one. So the very first thing I did was I felt the sting, like, oh, well, that wasn't what I said. And I thought I was like going from this place of, wouldn't this be cool? So I felt that feeling and I did nothing. I didn't react. I didn't snark back at him and say, well, that wasn't what I said. I didn't get all up in my stories about how he's basically saying to me, Amy, you need to earn more money. Amy, I'm really tired of you going after your dreams. Amy, I think you're a terrible loser. Amy, you should like be skinny and 20 years younger and rich and famous and I don't know, right? Like our brain tells us really ridiculous stories in these moments. So I didn't go into those. And I was very intentional about that. I really wanted to be aware of those pieces saying, oh, hey, here's an opportunity for us to tell all kinds of untrue and non-useful things to ourselves in order to notch down how we're feeling. So step one was to do nothing. Step two was to roll inwards and to remind myself, listen, I'm moving forward on my dreams. I understand that like he's holding faith with me. I understand that my faith might feel a little bit shaky right now. And also things are working out. Everything is working out for me. And I just think that that would be fun. That's it. Now that sounds stupidly simple. And you might be like, cool, this is like a 7-minute video that I didn't need to watch. But here's what has happened in the past. If I were to go all the way back to like, I'd have to think, like probably my late 20s, okay? So I've started my personal growth journey. I've been learning a ton about money at this point because I've been learning about money for more than 20 years, which is crazy. I know, I don't look a day over 25. I'm just kidding. But in my late 20s, if I was with my partner and I had said in this very intentional way, when my income allows, I'm looking forward to trying this thing. I think that would be fun. And they responded with a negative or a like sort of thunderstorm on top of my intention. Back then, I would be like, can't you just like dream with me? Can't you just like, why are you raining on my parade? I didn't say that I was going to join it today. I didn't say that like we needed to do this right now. I just think that it would be fun and like, please stop pouring all over me. That's how I used to operate. I gotta tell you, it's not great. It doesn't lend for a very wonderful relationship. It kind of ruins the rest of the day. And like, if it hadn't already literally rained on the festival, I would have just rained all over it with that vibe right there. So that was the old way of operating. In order to shift that old pattern, it had to start by me again going inwards and saying, this isn't actually an experience that I'm enjoying. Yes, on the one hand, I feel vindicated by having really said to this person, how dare you dump poop all over my dreams and my intentions? That's our initial reaction response. And that initial reaction is going to give us a fairly consistent experience within our relationships. You've had that moment, you've experienced it, and you're like, Amy, is no fun. And you're right, it is no fun. So that was then. So the first thing I had to realize was come to the awareness, I actually don't enjoy this. And while I felt that sense of vindication in the moment, it isn't changing the behavior of the person with me. It isn't feeling good 3 days later. It isn't changing anything for the positive in my life. So therefore, this kind of reaction is probably not something that I want to keep doing. So then we move forward. So let's say I'm now in the first half of my 30s. By the way, I loved my 30s because OMG, so many really cool things happened just in terms of like my own beliefs and patterns and things shifting. And if you've been in my world at all, you will have heard me say that my 30s were amazing for shrinking my fuck it bucket, which is the bucket of all the fucks that I have to give. And I love that it's shrinking. And 40 is proving to have that become, like, it's like, you know, like those kitty sand pails? It's like the little miniest version of it right now, which is awesome. Anyway, I digress. Let's come back to it. So in the first half of my 30s, I was now, for the most part, moving away from that reaction of, can't you just dream with me? I would now say something similar, but in a completely different language, where I might wait a moment or wait a day or so, process through, and then say to my partner, you know, when I was talking about that class that I wanted to do, I understand that financially it's not responsible or reachable for me to do this right now, but I do think that it would be fun. And your response in that moment actually took a lot of joy away from me. And I didn't really like that. So in the first half of my 30s, I got to tell you, this was enormous interior growth, okay? Because to say something in that way that is just clear, that is concise, that isn't creating blame, that isn't creating some kind of weird, funky pattern, that takes a lot of guts to try and practice that out. Because you have no idea how the other person's going to respond. And a whole pile of people are just going to be like, well, that's your freaking problem. So like, freaking deal with it. Which will tell you a whole lot about that relationship, that perhaps maybe it's not the one that you want to be in, right? But anyway, that was more from a response place as opposed to reaction. If you've been following my videos for a while, then you know I've talked about this a lot. From the place of responding, what I have done, or what I was doing at that time, was saying, this is a way that you responded or behaved in reaction to something that I had said. I didn't like it. Please change your behavior in future. Here's the problem with that paradigm. I'm still putting all of the power in the other person's hands. So when I would, talk about the next dream that I had, or I'd be dreaming about winning the lottery or whatever, like going on some amazing vacation. And this person would continue to just react in the way that they have. Even if I would say I didn't enjoy that, they might not change their behavior. And so now he's getting really frustrated because I kept holding on to, they need to alter what they're doing so I can keep holding on to my joy. In the back half of my 30s, this pattern started to shift because, again, I realized, okay, how I'm responding to this situation is better. It's a more useful way to respond than what I was doing in my 20s, but it still isn't actually creating the experience that I want to have. And more importantly, it's actually still putting all of the power in this other person's field. Well, that's not really awesome. That's not how I want to live my life. So what could be a better, more useful way of moving through it? So then I went through a period of just like not sharing my dreams at all and not pointing out things that were joyful. And I will say, this particular moment in my life of understanding who, when, and how I share things that I'm excited for was very, very powerful for me in terms of building my energy, building my boundaries, and allowing my dreams space to live in the magic of creation without pulling in or integrating other people's beliefs or perspectives. So there are people that exist in my life even today that I barely ever say that or tell like the exciting things that I'm creating or the desires that I have, because history has shown, and their behavior continues to depict today, that they are not someone who is going to respond in the way that I would like them to. And rather than open myself up to like pulling in their toxic energy and dumping it all over like chocolate syrup on my dreams, like, you know what? You can just keep your toxicity over there. Like, you do you. I will keep this container clean and delicious and full of magic so that this can like happily be created. So I went through this period of really not sharing with almost anybody the things that I was creating. The challenge with that is that meant I also didn't get to share the joy of the things that I was looking forward to. I didn't get to share the things that I was excited about calling into my life. So while I was learning how to practice really good, healthy boundaries and how to keep my creative energy clear and clean, it didn't allow anyone else to share along the path with me. So as I moved into my 40s and like things are feeling pretty good, most days. Some days I'm like, what is even happening right now? But I will say that most days I'm feeling relatively good. I feel relatively intrigued, I suppose is the best word for it, in terms of what I'm calling in, what I'm creating, how life is moving, how I find myself moving and operating in the world. So now I'm coming to this new space that I shared with you at the beginning, which is that I can, in a very clear, intentional way, share a desire or something that seems intriguing to me with someone who I want to share that joy with, but instead of leaving the power in their hands, that how they react, respond, the things that they say, the face that they make, the, whatever things that they do, instead of leaving it with them to dump all over me, I'm just like, here's this thing that I think would be fun. That's it. And if they're like, that sounds really cool, then I'm like, oh, yay, we get to now be happy about this together. And if they're like, then I'm like, cool, I still think this would be fun. And one day you'll figure it out too. This is the space so far. We'll see. When I said get into the back half of my 40s, who knows? Maybe I'll have the next level for you. But what I have found is that being able to hold this space of being able to share a desire or an interest or an intrigue, or pick any word that makes sense to you, with someone that I care for, who I would like to join in on the creative fun with me, but I share it from a place of just being fully in my own vibe. And no matter how they deal with that share, I still hold my vibe. And I still get to feel excited about it or happy about it or joyful or whatever. This space feels really clear and powerful. And what it allows me to do is to intentionally now, it's like if I'm walking on the street and I were to pick up, I don't know why, I'm thinking of this little tag. I don't know, just have this vision of this little metal tag, kind of like the dogs wear around their collars, but something bigger. And that tag said, Amy gets mad. And I'm like, well, that's not really what I want. So I set that one down. And then I pick up another one and it says, Amy feels on top of the world. And I'm like, well, that would be awesome, but that's not exactly how I'm feeling right now. So I put that down. And then I pick up another one and it says, Amy's just cool with having her desires and letting everybody else be themselves. And I'm like, well, that sounds all right. All right, I'm going to pop that in my pocket. And that's how I'm going to operate. It's this intentional selection. I know it sounds really weird because you're like, Amy, we just feels. I am with you. So it feels the feels very deeply. I totally understand. And also building the skill. And it is a skill. It's not one that you can necessarily go to school for, or if there is, I wish I knew what school that was. It's not necessarily something that anybody's really going to teach you, except for me. I got you. I'm here for you, babe. Having this skill of understanding, practicing the awareness that says, here's this experience, here's this moment where feeling is going to be integrated. And then being able to create a tiny bit of space between there to say, what is the feeling that I'm going to clasp onto in this moment? That's really powerful. And I'll tell you, there have absolutely been and will continue to be moments where I'm in that moment and the feeling that's coming up that says Amy's mad and she's going to tell somebody about it is fully the feeling that I have picked up, and I have intentionally said, I'm going to feel pissed about this and this is how it's going to be. Right? Because it's not about addressing that moment from the space of high vibes only, good vibes only. I only feel amazing, loving, juicy, Mother Earth vibes. No, fuck that BS. That is not how life is. And I can promise you, as someone has done the work, that if that's how you try to move through life, you are gonna find yourself in this really funky, weird place. Because the experience of being human includes the fullness of the emotions. So most of the time, I feel like I've probably gotten to about 95% of the time when I'm driving and someone pulls a boneheaded move, I might say wow, you're being a real ding dong, and try to move around. But it used to be that 95% of the time I'd lose my shit, I'd be swearing at them, I'd honk, I'd passive aggressively move through traffic, and I'd get, to wherever I was going, sweating and rah! And just being annoyed. It's been steady progress over the years to go, so that isn't awesome, because that's not the best way to experience life. And also passing through the stage that said, oh, I need to just be happy. There was this person that I learned from a few years ago. I don't agree with a lot of what I learned from them, but that's okay. This is something that was in my brain, and this is part of the phase of figuring out that always choosing happiness is not the best thing either. So this person used to use the example of a person doing something in traffic and you getting angry, and then they would sort of sing song, well, that person's in charge of your happiness. And I used to remind myself of that when I was driving. That did help me in that initial awareness stage to say, if I'm going to choose to react here and get angry and then move my behavior in response to what that person is doing, then yes, I am giving my happiness away and putting it fully in the hands of this other person. The problem with that is that when we are constantly focusing, and I think that candidly the personal growth space is really getting called out on this right now. Lots of people will talk about it as emotional bypassing or spiritual bypassing. But this idea that we need to really only good vibes only be focusing on positive feelings, always be looking at how do I feel happy? I think that if that is our focus, and if that's what you've been doing for a while and you're why isn't this working? What I will tell you with kindness and clarity and all the love I can possibly send to you through the screen is that was never meant to be the human experience. We were never meant to just be happy all of the time. Conversely, dear world, please hear me on this, we were also not meant to be miserable all the time. I know the news outlets maybe disagree because when we're miserable, they get all the clicks and the things, but the human experience, being here on this planet for however, I've been in this bizarre place the last few years where I'm just life is so friggin', it's so it doesn't make any sense. It's so arbitrary. It's so weird. I just, show up out of nowhere and I'm here for 80 years and there's all this pressure and all this work and all these things and then I'm just gone? It's weird, okay? Can we just agree that life is just weird? However, the point being that this experience isn't about just being happy all the time, and it isn't about just being miserable all the time. It is experiencing the fullness that is humanity. It is understanding that some days we actively choose to be pissed off. Some days we actively choose to be happy. Some days we actively choose to just sit on the couch and eat potato chips. This is the experience of life. But when we are in the space of creating a life that feels more joyful, that feels more happy, that feels more juicy, that we are excited to wake up to day in, day out. And let me say that differently. Maybe it's not so much, because I gotta tell you, my life is pretty good in a lot of ways. It needs some work in a lot of others, But like the days are not that common that I'm excited to wake up, where I'm like, oh my God, like it's gonna be awesome today. Those days are generally when there's something really cool happening. We just woke up in Greece. It's the day I'm getting married. It's my birthday every friggin' year. Like these days, if we wake up every single day excited, I'm very curious what you're doing differently. And it's not to say that like you can't and that that's an unattainable goal. I'm just saying that from my experience, I would say it's not generally what I've noticed, but I have had the moments in life where I wake up every day dreading having to wake up every day. And I think a lot of us are either in that right now, have experienced that in the past, or are like, oh, gee, what if that happens to me? So in order to build a life that, I suppose a better way to say it is that we enjoy waking up to, that we don't drag ourselves out of bed like, oh fuck, okay, I gotta go do this, here's another day, but more like, all right, cool, I'm feeling a little tired today, but here we go. Or that like, hey, it's Sunday, I'm excited about today. Whatever that looks like, part of creating that life is shifting those moments on the street where you're like, that looks really fun, and you share that with your partner, and they kind of pour poop on your parade, and you're like, WTF, that wasn't what we were doing here. And instead of reacting and putting all the power in their hands and saying, because you said this thing, because you made that face, because you weren't excited about this with me, I am now going to feel low, bad, depressed, frustrated, angry, whatever. Instead of doing that, we go, cool, I love how you responded there, but it actually doesn't really matter because I am still intrigued, excited, curious, looking forward to this thing, this intention, this experience that I just think would be fun to do. My loves, if this episode was helpful for you, do all the things, hit the like, hit the subscribe, make sure that you're getting the notifications so that you catch the videos when they come out every week into your world. And if this was helpful, if you know someone in your life who could use a little bit of insight like this one, I would love so much if you would share this video out and help it reach even more people, because that's really what we're here to do. Until next week, bye for now, and I wish you an amazing week ahead. Bye.